The simple fact is, whatever damage has been done to our plans must be laid at your feet, Kiruna, and yours, Bera. Are you quite finished? Bera said coolly.
Just somebody's opinion.
Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, Just Somebody's Opinion. My name is Bodhi, and this is my channel where I talk about random things that I like talking about, mainly the Wheel of Time right now. If you want to follow and read along with me, please hit me a like and subscribe, and let's dive into it. Just a quick spoiler warning. This video will contain spoilers all across Lord of Chaos. Enjoy! And today I'm gonna go very geeky and nerdy, and I'm gonna talk about why the Caemlyn Embassy failed. And I'm gonna do a 1 power analysis. Okay, let's do a recap of what the Caemlyn Embassy was. This was the embassy of Aes Sedai from Saladar. They came to Caemlyn. In the meantime, the Elida faction was going to Caerien. The Caemlyn Embassy was made up of 9 Aes Sedai, which they said was triple what a normal king would get. And before anything else, I'm using a 2004 Pop Sugar celebrity quiz to randomly populate the 9 embassy people. I did not choose with thought for anyone here except for Masuri for a Japanese celebrity. So let's get on to the analysis. So these were the original 9 of the embassy. It was led by Mirana, and there were 2 blue sisters, Raphella and Karen. There were 2 brown sisters, Demira and Masuri. There were 2 green sisters, Phaedrin and Sened. And we had 1 single white sister, Valinde. This was the makeup of the group going to Caemlyn. So, the reason why I'm going to do a deep dive analysis on the failure of the Caemlyn Embassy is because the first time I had read this around, or maybe even the 3 times I've read through Lord of Chaos, I was a bit confused why the embassy had imploded the way it had. Especially with Mirana, who was a Grey sister, who was very well known as a negotiator. And the reason for that failure, as it's seen in the text, is because of the power dynamics within the Aes Sedai. Let's do a recap of the rules between the social ranking of an Aes Sedai. Number 1, the more powerful Aes Sedai is higher in the social ranking. Number 2, if an Aes Sedai is put in a position of authority, like the ambassador of the embassy, that Aes Sedai, no matter the power level, is the leading authority within that group of Aes Sedai. We're going to be using the power rankings that were made available within the Wheel of Time companion. Now, it has been stated that there may be inconsistencies in the power rankings that we see, but this is the best level of notes that we have from the late Robert Jordan, and this was the reference guide that he used so that he could determine who deferred to whom during any interaction with Aes Sedai. So let's do a recap of how to read the power levels of the Wheel of Time. As you can see in the table that I'm showing right now, we have strength level and the channelers and the notes here. And the highest level in the Wheel of Time is ++1. And this is the highest level a man can achieve. What happens here is that there are 6 levels of a man before we get to the highest strength level of a woman. So you see ++1 that has Rand and Moradin and Ravin, and then we get down to the highest level a woman can achieve, and that's Lanfear, Olivia, Semirage. And you see here like 1 + 12, and this is because the number within the parenthesis is the number on the old scale. And when I say old scale, this was the scale of Aes Sedai before the modern age. So if we go down here, right, and we get to the first, we see in the old days, people like Moraine, Swan, Elida, they were all the top. They were all the top of the ladder in terms of the strength level. So this parentheses 1 used to be the number 1 within the Aes Sedai. Once the modern age started, we get 12 more levels above. And so you see here, the new level makes Lanfear 1 and then plus 12 in the old way of thinking. You see Moraine, Swan, Elida all being in 13-1. To make things easier, right? I'm still gonna continue talking about it in this way. All you need to know is that 13-1 used to be the highest anyone could be in the Aes Sedai. And that's why Kadswani here at 5 plus 8 was way more than a living legend, because Kadswani is 3 levels higher even than Egwene and Elaine at 8 plus 5. Hopefully that made sense to everyone here. Okay, so if you see here, this was our original 9 of the embassy, but let us look at the original 9 in terms of power. So you'll see here that Mirana was a 17-5. She was actually the same in power ranking as Shawned. I'll call her Shawned. You'll notice that there were 3 sisters above her at level 4, and that was Rafella, Phaeldrin, and Masuri. Everyone else was below her. Demira and Karen was right below her at 6, Berenice at 7, and we have Valinde all the way down to 21. So basically, Valinda would have been serving tea to all the sisters above her, because that's how far away she was in the social pecking order. Again, recapping on the rules of the Aes Sedai social pecking order, even if Rafella, Phaeldrin, and Masuri were all level 4 and above Mirana, because Mirana was the head of the embassy, she had precedence. Now, we go to the first complication, which is the arrival of Alanna and Verin. And so I'm adding now Alanna and Verin. So let's get to the text on what exactly Mirana was thinking when Verin and Alanna came in. Verin was the problem, the one who had Mirana thinking of strengths and precedence. Mirana let herself sense the other woman's strength in the power again, though of course she knew what she would find. No way to tell which of them was stronger. 5 years as a novice for each, 6 is accepted. That was one thing every Aes Sedai knew about every other if she knew nothing else. The difference was that Verin was older, maybe almost as much older than she as she was older than Alanna. The touch of grey in Verin's hair emphasized that. Had Verin been part of the embassy, there would have been no difficulty at all, but she was not. And Mirana found herself listening attentively, deferring without thinking. Twice in the morning, she had to remind herself Verin was not in charge. And let's take a look at this power structure. We have Mirana wondering about the precedence between herself and Verin. And that's because Rafella, Phaeldrin, and Masuri were all within the embassy. And so to them, it was naturally that Mirana was going to be above them because of her ambassadorship. And so here we are at the first pickle. Mirana was instinctively deferring to Verin. And then the Demira incident happened, which was when Demira was attacked by Aiel. So let's get to the text. What I think, Mirana began, but Verin cut her off. In a moment, Mirana, Demira has the right to first suggestions. Demira's breath caught as she waited for the explosion. Mirana always seemed to want her decisions approved by Verin, which was natural enough under the circumstances, if awkward. But this was the first time Verin had simply taken charge. in front of others at least. Yet all Mirana did was stare at Verin for a moment, lips compressed, and then bow. We see the chipping away of Mirana's authority with Verin here, where Verin had finally just taken charge. And if you'll notice, the people in the room were Demira, Berenicia, Mirana, and Verin. So no one was higher than Verin here. And Mirana was obviously deferring to Verin. So there was no question for Demira and Berenicia. They were instinctively going with the Aes Sedai pecking order. And then finally, the straw that broke the camel's back, Bera and Kiruna were the two greens who had been dispatched by Dalidar to the Aiel Waste. And instead, they had ended up going to Caemlyn instead because they had heard that Rand had gone there. So they were even 2 levels above the highest in the embassy. And as level 2, they were only below the most powerful of the Aes Sedai at that point in time, which were Swan, Elida, Moraine. And so they definitely bent the tower around them. And so the fragile piece that Mirana had was about to be broken open. To the text. This is Mirana speaking. The simple fact is, whatever damage has been done to our plans must be laid at your feet, Kiruna, and yours, Bera. She could only wait then, if she had managed to gain any moral ascendancy at all. Are you quite finished? Bera said coolly. Kiruna was even more blunt. She turned to the others. Phaedrin, you will come with us to Caerien, if you will, and also you, Masuri, Raphela. Mirana trembled, the folded letter crumpling in her fist. Don't you see? She shouted. You talk as if we can go on as before, as if nothing has changed. There's an embassy from Elida and Caerien, from the White Tower. That is how Althor must see it. We need him more than he needs us, and I fear he knows it. For a moment, shock covered every face, save Verin's. Verin only nodded thoughtfully, smiling a small, secretive smile. For a moment, every other face was full of wide eyes, stunned. Those words seemed to ring in the air. We need him more than he needs us. They did not need 3 oaths to know it for truth. Then Bera said quite firmly, Sit down, Mirana. Mirana was sitting before she even realized it, still trembling, still wanting to shout, but sitting with her hands clutched together around Althor's missive. Kiruna turned her back deliberately. Shaunid, you will come, of course. Another pair of Gaiden are always useful. And Verin, I think. Verin nodded as if it were a request. Demira, Kiruna went on, I know you have grievance against him, but we do not want to panic the man again, and someone must shepherd that extraordinary collection of girls from the 2 rivers to Salidar. You, Valinda, Karen, Berenicia must assist Mirana in that. The other 4 named murmured acceptance without the slightest hesitation, but Mirana felt cold. The delegation was not crumbling, it was gone to dust. She trailed off as Bera's gaze turned to her, and Kiruna's, and Masuri's and Phaedrin's and Raphael's as well, gone to dust and all her authority with it. You may find some need for a grey, she said faintly. There will certainly be negotiations, and... Words failed her again. This would never have happened when the tower was whole. Very well, Bera said at last, in such a tone that all Mirana's control only just kept her cheeks from going crimson in shame. When I first read this, I hadn't really understood the whole social pecking order, and I think it's only really expounded upon in later books when the kin remark about it. But at this point in time, I didn't even notice. Now let me just bring us back to who Bera and Kiruna had chosen right away. They had chosen Raphela, Phaedrin, Masuri, Shaunid, Verin, and Alanna, and these were easily the strongest within the embassy. And they had tasked Demira with the weak ones to bring back the 2 Rivers girls to Salidar. And they were first tasking Mirana to go with them. And it was only because Mirana asked for it that they even acknowledged her. And that's why the embassy failed. It was something I'd never really understood, except for wondering why Mirana was so ruffled with these random other Aes Sedai. Now it's pretty clear and straightforward. It started with Verin and Alanna, with Mirana starting to defer to Verin. It was broken by Bera and Kiruna, who just took charge and broke it, and everyone just assuming the position. So I hope you liked my random nerd out and the power rankings of the Wheel of Time and the politics with it. It's something that I intend to keep looking out for as I read through my reread. And if you liked what you've seen here and you want to see more, please like and subscribe. It would really help, and I would see you in the reread.